Senator, I want to play some sound from the Vice President's trip to Los Angeles yesterday and get your response on the other side.
Sure.
Well, I was hoping Jose Padilla would be here to ask a question, but unfortunately, I guess he decided not to show up because there wasn't the theater. And that's all it is. You know, I think everybody realizes that's what this is. It's pure political theater. These guys show up. They want to be captured on camera doing something. They want to be able to go back to their far left groups and to say, look, me, I stood up against border enforcement. I stood up against Donald Trump. When all they're really standing up for is for drug cartels to run rampant over our country and sex traffickers to be able to continue to traffic little kids into our country. That's what you're doing when you stand against border enforcement. So I think these guys, we ought to laugh them out of the building.
Just want to say some things here. Vice President J.D. Vance served with you in the Senate for multiple years. He is currently the president of the Senate where you serve. He also went to Yale. I assume that he knows your name is Alex Padilla. Your response to him calling you Jose?
Oh, he knows my name. He knows my name. Look, sadly, it's just an indicator of how petty and unserious this administration is. But he's the Vice President of the United States. You think he'd take the situation in Los Angeles more seriously? You know, you think maybe he'd take a moment to talk to some of the families who have been impacted, have been terrorized, to feel what's really going on the ground. You saw him shaking hands with Marines, but did he listen to the Marines? Because we have, you know, report after report of the Marines, so many of the Marines themselves that don't want to be there. That's not why they enlisted. Or if not the migrant families, how about the employers, right, who I know are speaking up because they're concerned about their workforce? Or how about this? Just take a moment and talk to the sheriff of Los Angeles County. Talk to the chief of police of Los Angeles City and hear from them their frustration for the lack of communication, the lack of coordination, this unnecessary and counterproductive buildup of the National Guard and the Marines, making their job as local law enforcement more difficult. Or even if you couldn't do that, how about taking a moment to go to the Pacific Palisades and Pasadena, Altadena, and talk to the families who lost everything in the fires from last January? Because guess what? Months and months later, there's still no additional disaster aid coming to so many people in the region. We've got a lot of important work to do, but this is how the Vice President chooses to act, and that says a lot.
You know, we should also point out that a Vance spokesperson said, quote, of the Vice President, he must have mixed up two people who have broken the law. You didn't break any laws.
I didn't break any laws.
Senator, we've known each other for a long time. You are a calm, serious, mild-mannered person. But ever since what happened to you and watching it just now on the screen, and tell me if I'm wrong, I sense a change in you. How has what happened to you at that press conference changed you?
Yeah, well, I think people who have known me for a long time would tell you, don't mistake kindness for weakness, right? The work that we do is serious. You know, and I've been serious about my service, my oath to office, my commitment to my constituents for a long time. But when we see overreach, so much overreach like we've seen from this administration since January 20th, we have no choice but to stand up. We have no choice but to speak up. And look, I think what happened to me, as painful as it was for me, for my family, it's not about me. You know, I've said repeatedly, if this is what this administration is willing to do to a senator trying to ask a question, imagine out what they can do, but what is happening in all corners of the country, especially in Los Angeles right now, when the cameras are not on. One of the things I've been trying to shed light on, and we've now seen reporting on this, is, yes, if this was only about cracking down on drug dealers, violent criminals, dangerous criminals, et cetera, there'd be no debate, there'd be no discussion. Everybody's on board with that. But what this administration is doing is far from that. Recent reports show that more than 90% of people taken into custody since October have no serious criminal convictions.
You're citing a Cato Institute study, 93% no violent convictions. This came out yesterday.
Right, and so what is happening? That maybe 7-ish%, again, no debate, no discussion there, but the others, These are people that, like my father, working as a cook in a kitchen. People like my mother who cleaned homes for a living, trying to raise a family. You've seen images of ICE agents literally chasing farm workers in the fields of Ventura County, workers in car washes, workers in hotels. They're targeting courthouses, houses of worship. Really, that's how evil these immigrants are, that they're going to church, they're going to work, kids are going to school. These are the same group, the cruel irony here, the same group of workers that the first Trump administration deemed essential at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. But they don't care. If the vice president doesn't care to say my name, the president doesn't care about what's happening, because they don't have any answers. Like, where's the counter proposal to here's how we modernize our immigration system? There's no crisis at the border right now that they're using as a pretext to, justify these actions.
We begin in Los Angeles, where Vice President J.D. Vance made a whirlwind visit and left behind a political firestorm. In just a few hours on the ground, Vance attacked California's top Democrats, accusing them of, quote, egging on violent protesters, and even misnaming California Senator Alex Padilla, calling him Jose, shortly after a photo op with U.S. Marines.
Well, I was hoping Jose Padilla would be here to ask a question, but unfortunately, I guess he decided not to show up because there wasn't the theater. And that's all it is. I think everybody realizes that's what this is. It's pure political theater. These guys show up, they want to be captured on camera doing something.
In the last hour, Senator Padilla responded to that moment here on The Weekend.
He knows my name. He knows my name. Look, sadly, it's just an indicator of how petty and unserious this administration is. He's the vice president of the United States. You think he'd take the situation in Los Angeles more seriously? And we got a lot of important work to do, but this is how the vice president chooses to act, and that says a lot.
Vance's visit comes as federal appeals court ruled late Thursday night that Trump could keep control of the California National Guard. And joining us now is the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. Mayor Bass, welcome back to The Weekend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So you had a press conference yesterday where you said, and I quote, "How dare you?" to Vice President J.D. Vance and what he did coming to your city and misnaming Senator Padilla. Talk more about that.
Well, first of all, the whole visit was insulting. It was a photo op, and really he was here for a fundraiser. But he comes in, he makes all of these, statements about what is not happening in L.A. at all, and then insults the senator that he serves with now as president of the Senate. So it was just disrespectful, but it was just tough listening to him saying what is going on in our city, and it be 100% lies.
Mayor Bass, in black and brown communities, being misnamed often has some underlying tendencies in it. And, the conversation around this that people are having online, folks that I talked to even just in the last, hours since it happened, is that it's racist. Do you think that J.D. Vance was being racist to Alex Padilla?
Well, let me just tell you that I know that he is aware of the senator's name, and there was no reason for him to do that at all. Just like there was no reason for him to accuse me and the governor of actually contributing to the problem. We had a couple of days of vandalism. We were able to control the situation. The National Guard was never needed here. This has all been a political stunt. But I also think it's been a test. It's been a test to see how much will the American public put up with a president, an administration that comes in and seizes power from a governor, something that was completely unnecessary in our city.
Let's play that sound from Vice President Vance going after you and the governor.
We have a public official in Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, who over the past few years have actively encouraged illegal migration into this community. When I saw this city, when I was driving through, to come to this FBI building, all I could think about is what a great American city Los Angeles is, and what a great tragedy it is that we have allowed illegal immigration and rioting to destroy, I think, one of the great gems of the American family.
Now, Mayor Bass, I wanted to play that and have people hear that because he came to your city, what was it, the day after you lifted the curfew in your city.
Well,
things are fine. Things are fine in Los Angeles, right?
Things have been fine. It was actually several days after we had lifted the curfew. You know, Los Angeles, as you know, Jonathan, is 500 square miles. The problem that we had over a couple of days was about 1 square mile. It was about 4 blocks in Los Angeles. You know, and it wasn't that. I mean, after you have a major sporting event, you might have a lot of celebration, and then there's a few people that hang around and create confusion. There was vandalism for a couple of days. Our police department, sheriff department, and other surrounding agencies had the situation completely under control. And by the way, the only thing the National Guard is doing here is protecting one building. That's all. They're not involved in crime control. So if you look at why we have peace in Los Angeles, it's because of me as the mayor, our police chief, our sheriff. We had the situation completely under control. This was unnecessary, which is why I call it an experiment. They are testing to see how far can they go as the federal government.
Trump is furious with JD. He's furious. Will this lead to firing? Again, question marks are being asked. Titles have question marks, so we don't know for sure. But the reality is that fundamentally, JD embarrassed Trump with this. Makes them look unprofessional. And here's the thing. I know you're thinking, well, what about the cats and dogs story? That was really unprofessional. It was in our minds. In Trump's mind, that was purposeful, and he thought it was politically brilliant, and it served his narrative. But forgetting a senator's name, even like Trump doesn't do that on purpose. I remember he forgot JD's name at an event, but it wasn't on purpose. And Trump was probably embarrassed by that. Trump makes up names to humiliate people, but often based on their real name. So, you know, it's a Crooked Hillary or, Crazy Bernie or a Little Marco or Ron DeSanctimonious. We can go through all the Trump nick. Look, unfortunate as it is, the guy's objectively hilarious. He's a monster, but he's objectively hilarious. But JD calling Senator Padilla Jose when his name isn't Jose, and Jose just happening to be a stereotypical, Hispanic name, a very common one, right? It reeks of discrimination, and it just looks unprofessional. And I don't think Trump's gonna take to it very well. Like, he would be fine with J.D. Vance mocking him. If he called him, Senator Crybaby Padilla because he's whining about it. Like, Trump would love that, even though it was sick. But J.D. absolutely humiliated Trump. He looked like a coward. J.D. wouldn't take questions from the local media. Now, Trump probably would have out of ego alone. And so J.D. looks weak. He looks like a coward. He looks unprofessional. And I don't think Trump's gonna like that.